What began as a routine drive on Highway 99 turned into chaos within moments when dense valley fog suddenly swallowed the roadway. 1 second, traffic was moving at normal speeds. The next visibility collapsed to barely 300 ft, erasing taillights, lane markers, and any margin for reaction. Drivers had no warning and no time to slow down safely. Brakes slammed, vehicles closed in on one another, and the highway transformed into a trap. In California's Central Valley, fog is not unusual, but this was different. The thickness of the fog turned a familiar stretch of highway into a near-white wall, where even experienced drivers could not see more than a few car lengths ahead. At highway speeds, that distance disappears in seconds. What followed was not a single crash, but a rapid chain reaction as vehicles plowed forward with nowhere to escape. Cars, pickup trucks, and commercial vehicles entered the fog bank unaware of what lay ahead. By the time headlights revealed stopped traffic, it was already too late. In less than a minute, a normal commute became one of the most disruptive roadway disasters the region had seen in years, proving how quickly low visibility can turn an everyday drive into a life-threatening situation. The incident unfolded along Highway 99 in Tulare County, California, a critical north-south artery running through the heart of the Central Valley. This stretch of highway is heavily traveled, carrying daily commuters, agricultural workers, long-haul truckers, and commercial freight that keeps the region's economy moving. From passenger cars to fully loaded semi-trucks, traffic volume remains high from early morning through late evening. Tulare County sits in one of the most fog-prone regions in the United States. During the cooler months, dense valley fog frequently forms overnight and lingers into the morning commute. Moist air settles close to the ground, creating sudden visibility drops that can appear without warning, especially along open farmland and low-lying corridors like Highway 99. Despite this known risk, the highway continues to operate at full capacity during fog events. Drivers often enter these fog banks at freeway speeds, unaware of how quickly conditions can deteriorate. On the morning of this incident, traffic was already building as vehicles funneled through the corridor, setting the stage for disaster. When visibility abruptly vanished, the combination of speed, traffic density, and limited escape routes left drivers with no room for error on one of California's most vital highways. Wow. The primary cause of the crash was dense valley fog that reduced visibility to roughly 100 ft, about the length of 6 or 7 passenger vehicles. At freeway speeds, that distance disappears almost instantly. Drivers traveling at 60 to 70 mph were covering that space in barely a second, leaving no meaningful time to recognize danger or react safely. As the fog thickened, tail lights ahead faded and then vanished entirely. Lane markers became difficult to distinguish, and depth perception collapsed. What looked like open roads suddenly concealed stopped or slowing traffic. When the first drivers hit their brakes, the effect rippled backward through tightly packed lanes. Each hard stop forced the vehicle behind to react even more abruptly, compounding the danger. In these conditions, normal driving instincts fail. Even alert drivers following standard spacing found themselves too close once visibility dropped without warning. The fog did not gradually roll in. It formed like a wall, trapping vehicles inside it. With limited sight lines, high traffic density, and little shoulder space to escape, sudden braking became unavoidable. That split-second loss of visibility was enough to trigger a chain reaction that quickly overwhelmed the entire highway. Oh my God, this is crazy. The crash did not begin as a single explosive impact. Instead, it started with scattered collisions as the first vehicles encountered stopped traffic hidden inside the fog. Drivers slammed on their brakes, tires locked up, and the initial impact sent shockwaves through the traffic flow. Within seconds, those isolated crashes merged into a rapidly expanding chain reaction. Vehicles traveling behind had no clear line of sight, and no warning that traffic ahead had already come to a standstill. As each driver reacted, the margin for avoidance shrank. One collision triggered another, then another, spreading across lanes as cars and trucks were forced sideways or pushed forward by the momentum of following traffic. In the dense fog, drivers could hear impacts before they could see them. What unfolded was a multi-lane pileup involving clear-throat passenger cars, pickup trucks, commercial vehicles, and semi-trailers. Some vehicles were struck multiple times as additional traffic entered the crash zone. Unaware of the danger ahead, the fog continued to feed the disaster, allowing the sequence to grow even after traffic should have stopped. In a matter of moments, Highway 99 was transformed from a moving freeway into a frozen mass of twisted metal stretching across both directions of travel. The scene that emerged inside the fog was chaotic and dangerous. Dozens of vehicle sedans, pickup trucks, commercial box trucks, and fully loaded semi-trailers were tangled together across multiple lanes. Some cars were crushed between larger vehicles, while others sat at unnatural angles, pinned against guardrails or locked bumper to bumper with nowhere to move. Twisted metal littered the roadway. Crumpled hoods and shattered windshields reflected headlights that cut weakly through the fog. Several engines continued to run, sending smoke and steam into the already limited airspace, while leaking fluids spread across the pavement. Horns blared intermittently as drivers tried to signal their presence in near-zero visibility. What made the situation even more dangerous was that the fog never lifted. Visibility remained severely restricted, leaving drivers unsure whether more vehicles were still approaching at highway speeds. Many stayed inside their cars, fearing that stepping onto the roadway could be just as deadly as remaining seated. With lanes completely blocked and shoulders filled with wreckage, Highway 99 became an immovable barrier of damaged vehicles, trapping drivers and responders alike inside a hazardous environment where the risk of secondary impacts remained constant. Emergency calls flooded dispatch centers almost simultaneously from both directions of Highway 99. Reports described multiple crashes, zero visibility, and vehicles still colliding inside the fog. First responders were sent into a situation where the danger was ongoing, not contained. Fire crews, paramedics, California Highway Patrol officers, and transportation teams approached cautiously, knowing that additional vehicles could emerge from the fog at any moment. Visibility remained severely limited as responders moved between wrecked cars using flashlights and emergency lights to mark their positions. Paramedics assessed injured drivers, while fire crews worked to secure leaking fuel disconnect batteries and reduce the risk of fires or explosions. Every movement had to be deliberate. One wrong step in the roadway could have put responders directly in the path of another unseen vehicle. Traffic control became an immediate priority. Officers shut down the freeway in both directions, while road crews established safety zones around the crash site. The fog made communication difficult, forcing teams to rely on close coordination and constant radio updates. Even with lights flashing, the scene remained dangerously concealed, turning the rescue effort itself into a high-risk operation. As rescue operations continued, the scope of injuries became clearer. Multiple drivers and passengers were transported to nearby hospitals, most suffering minor injuries, such as cuts, bruises, and whiplash caused by the sudden impacts. At least one individual required additional medical evaluation, highlighting how unpredictable injuries can be in high-speed chain reaction crashes. Inside the fog, many people were shaken, but physically unharmed. These drivers were carefully escorted away from the wreckage and gathered in designated staging areas off the highway. Emergency personnel documented statements, checked for delayed symptoms, and ensured that everyone involved was accounted for. Given the ongoing risk of secondary collisions, remaining on the roadway was not an option. Buses were brought in to move uninjured drivers safely away from the crash zone. For many, the wait lasted hours as they sat in silence, watching emergency lights flicker through the fog. Even without serious injuries, the psychological impact was significant. Drivers described the fear of being trapped inside a crash scene. They could not see, unsure if another vehicle might emerge from the fog and strike again. The crash brought Highway 99 to a complete standstill. Both northbound and southbound lanes were fully shut down as emergency crews worked inside the fog, leaving thousands of drivers stranded for hours. Long lines of stopped vehicles stretched for miles in both directions, with no clear timeline for when movement would resume. As the closure extended, traffic was diverted onto local roads not designed to handle freeway-level volume. Small towns and rural communities surrounding the highway quickly became congested as detour routes overloaded. Intersections backed up, surface streets slowed to a crawl, and residents found themselves caught in gridlock, created far from the original crash site. The shutdown hit the region's economy hard. Highway 99 serves as a critical agricultural and commercial corridor, moving produce, livestock, and freight throughout California. With trucks unable to pass deliveries, were delayed, supply chains stalled, and businesses across the Central Valley felt the impact almost immediately. For many drivers, what should have been a routine trip turned into an all-day ordeal. The incident underscored how a single visibility-related disaster can ripple far beyond the crash itself, disrupting an entire region's movement and commerce in a matter of hours. Recovery operations stretched on for several hours as investigators documented the scene, and crews worked methodically through the wreckage. Heavy-duty tow trucks were brought in to remove disabled vehicles, including damaged semi-trailers and commercial trucks blocking multiple lanes. Debris was cleared piece by piece to prevent further hazards, while responders remained alert for shifting conditions inside the fog. Only after the worst of the fog began to thin did crews start reopening the highway. Lanes were restored gradually, with traffic allowed through in controlled stages. Once safety checks were completed, damaged vehicles were hauled away, spilled fluids treated, and roadway surfaces inspected. Full traffic flow did not resume until visibility improved, and officials were confident that the immediate dangers had been eliminated along the fog-prone corridor. Following the incident, officials emphasized that valley fog can form suddenly and without warning, turning familiar highways into high-risk environments within seconds. Drivers were urged to slow down immediately when visibility drops, and to avoid traveling at freeway speeds when they cannot clearly see the road ahead. Authorities stressed the importance of using low-beam headlights or fog lights, not high beams, which can reflect off the fog and further reduce visibility. Maintaining increased following distance was also highlighted, as standard spacing becomes ineffective when sightlines collapse. Officials warned that overconfidence on well-known routes can be dangerous, especially in fog-prone regions like the Central Valley. The crash on Highway 99 served as a stark reminder that in low-visibility conditions, cautious driving is not optional. It is often the difference between a safe trip and a life-threatening disaster. Dense fog doesn't look dramatic until it turns deadly. The Highway 99 pileup in Tulare County is a reminder that some of the most dangerous disasters don't come with storm sirens or headlines in advance. They arrive silently, erase visibility in seconds, and leave no room for mistakes. One routine drive, one wall of fog, dozens of lives thrown into chaos. This channel exists to document those moments. We break down real-world disasters caused by extreme weather, low visibility, and sudden environmental hazards. Events that happen fast, hit hard, and often go unnoticed until it's too late. From massive pileups to regional shutdowns, we focus on what happened, why it happened, and what it means for drivers and communities across America. If you care about road safety, weather-related disasters, and real incidents that reveal how fragile everyday travel can be, this channel is for you. Subscribe, stay informed, and stay alert, because the next disaster rarely announces itself.